everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the planning panel, which is being held at the civic offices and is being streamed to the council's YouTube channel. I'm Councillor Stephen Brown, chair of the planning committee and chair of tonight's panel. Members of the panel are present in the room tonight, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves shortly. As you'd expect, a number of officers have also joined us. For those present tonight, please be aware we are not expecting a fire alarm, and in the event the alarm sounds, please exit via the nearest marked doors and assemble in the car park as indicated by the marshals. We'll now start with introductions, and I'll start with the councillors, with Councillor McLean on this side.
Good evening, Councillor Keith McLean, on the Vice Chairs of the Planning Committee.
Councillor Sue Smith, part of the committee.
Councillor Waqas Ahmed, part of this committee.
Councillor Rex Exon, another Vice Chair of the committee.
Martin Ellison, Senior Conservation Officer.
Lauren Bradwell, Planning Officer.
Paul Keane, Development Management Team Leader.
Lisa Edwards, Principal Lawyer, Planning and Regeneration.
George Vincent, Democratic Services Officer.
Thank you very much, everyone. We have one planning application to consider this evening, and for the benefit of all, I will describe how we will conduct the meeting. For the application, the planning officer will introduce the application, and where there are presentations, these will be displayed on the screens in the room and on the recording, and I will invite those who've registered to speak in advance of the meeting to come forward. I will ask that officers deal with any points of clarification from councillors following the presentation, and then move the recommendation in the report and invite a member of the committee to second. This does not indicate that either of us support the proposal, but allows us to debate the matter formally. I'll then invite committee members to raise any points of debate, and they will each have up to 3 minutes to speak. And to be clear to members of the public present and online tonight, the only considerations we will be making are material planning matters as set out in planning law, and for reference, these are described at the beginning of the meeting agenda. If any amendments are proposed, they must be moved and seconded and then voted upon, and once all contributions have been made, I will sum up and take a vote on the motion or amended motion, and I will ask all participants to keep their contributions to their allotted time and speak only when invited to do so by the chair. If legal advice is required at any stage, I will invite the council's legal representative to comment. Voting will be conducted via a show of hands, and if a recorded vote is requested, a vote will be taken by name. Before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance that whilst the meeting is being held in public, those who have joined in the public gallery have done so as observers and not as an audience. While I appreciate there may be strong views on the item before us tonight, I would encourage those in the public gallery to not express support or opposition to comments made by councillors, officers, public speakers, and there should be no shouting, heckling, cheering, etc. We will now move on to the agenda. Apologies. George, do we have any apologies?
None have been received, Chair.
Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Do any councillors wish to disclose any interests? Councillors should declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests, or non-registrable interests, including other pecuniary interests they may have in the business to be transacted. Lovely. Public participation questions. George, have we received any questions not related to items on this evening's agenda?
Nothing's been received, Chair.
Thank you very much. In that case, straight on to the one application, which is Arbor House, and I'll ask the planning officer, Lauren, to introduce the report, please.
This is item 5A for Arbor House on Church Road in Sherrington. It is for the erection of a detached single-storey 2-bedroom dwelling with associated works, including the formation of a crossover on Carter's Close. This is the site location plan with the location of the site outlined in red. These are just some site photos. So on the left-hand side is a view towards the proposed crossover and front elevation of the site from Carter's Close. The right shows the view along Carter's Close from the site entrance. These photos are taken from within the site The one on the left is the view towards where the Carter's Close crossover will be, and partly towards 39 Carter's Close, which is on the right-hand side. The photo on the right is also from a slightly different angle from within.
Can you speak up, please?
I've got the microphone.
Thank you.
This is the proposed site layout. These are the proposed elevations, which show the west side and the south front elevation. And these are the east side and the north rear elevations. Key considerations to take away is that the site does not form part of the original residential curtilage of Arbour House, and it would not result in harm to the designated heritage asset. The proposal is single-storey and would not result in harm to residential amenity that could not be controlled by conditions. The proposal would not severely impact highway safety or the operation of the highway. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. We have 3 speakers registered in objection to this application. When I call your name forward, please join us on the floor. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. There will be a clock on the screen, but I will try and remind you when there's 30 seconds remaining. Can we start with Jamie Evans, please?
I live at 39 Carter's Close, caring for my disabled father. We submitted evidence that the officer's report did not address. Our independent engineer's report proves the back-to-back distance with my home will be 16 metres at its closest. The report also proves this building will sit over half a metre higher than my home at floor level. The boundary hedge has no protection. It can go at any time. The result is an elevated building looking straight down into every habitable room in my home. Even a 2-metre fence will not screen this. Paragraph 410.1 of the Council Residential Design Guide is clear. For infill, a minimum of 22 metres back-to-back must be applied. It's not a rule of thumb. It is a minimum adopted by this council to protect existing residents. The applicant will tell you this only applies to 2-storey buildings. It does not. I urge members to read paragraph 410.1 for themselves. This building is 16 metres at its closest. Draw the 22-metre line from the back of my house. It falls deep inside the kitchen, dining room and lounge of this new home. The applicant has incorrectly used the new development section of paragraph 410.1. But this is infill. With new builds, people choose their setting. With infill, it is forced on existing residents, and that is why the standard is higher. The 5-metre ridge sits 2 metres from the boundary of my neighbour at Carter's Barn. National BRE guidance, BR 209, the standard this council uses to assess daylight impact, requires that at least half of any garden receives 2 hours of sunlight on the 21st of March. We submitted evidence proving this building fails that test at nearly double the threshold. For over 6 months of the year, the garden at Carter's Barn will be in shadow at midday. And this is a direct breach of policy D5 and reason enough to reject this application alone. Yet the officer's report does not mention Carter's Barn once. This house is a Trojan horse. It can immediately convert to 2 stories. Using Class A rights, which the officer has not recommended removing, this building and its 5-metre ridge can extend 4 metres to the rear, even closer to my home, meaning Carter's Barn will only see midday sun for 4 months of the year. Your adopted residential design guidance is clear. We have proved this application breaches it. I ask you to refuse. If minded to approve, I request the removal of Class A permitted development rights and a conditioned and certified floor level.
Thank you very much. Next we have Amanda Williams, please.
MK Conservation have placed no objection on the basis that this proposal represents no additional harm to the setting of the Grade 2 listed Arbour House, but they were not told the key facts. No mention of the 8-metre distance or the 5-metre two-storey ridge height was disclosed by the applicant. The claim that this plot was never part of the original curtilage is incorrect and easily provable. Arbour House is listed as 18th century. The 1796 enclosure map of Sherrington clearly shows Arbour House, Carter's Barn, and this land as one plot, 177, a homestead belonging to a Mr. John Clayton. The adjacent land, plot 176, also belonged to a Clayton. Homestead means land attached to the house. The proposed development will only sit 8 metres from the back of a Grade 2 listed building. This is a violation of the requirement in the paragraph 4.10.1 of the Council's own residential design guide. This proposal will sever historical land from the listed building, exactly what Historic England's GPA 3, the setting of heritage assets, warns against. NPPF paragraph 212 and policy HE1 both require great weight to be given to the conservation of a designated heritage asset. Because the west side of Arbour House has always been a driveway, the remaining garden will be smaller than a modern terrace house, an 18th century homestead reduced to a yard. That is not preserving the setting, it is destroying it. The officer's own report contradicts itself at paragraph 7.5. It accepts this land once contributed to the significance of the listed building. Just because the setting was reduced in the 1970s does not mean it can be completely destroyed today. Policy HE1 specifically warns against excessive small-scale changes. Approving this application is exactly that. Historic England is clear. You cannot consider the conifers when assessing the impact on views. They have no protection. They are temporary. The 5-metre ridge is permanent. It will obstruct views of the listed building from many angles. Under the Listed Buildings Act, the duty to protect this setting falls on you, this committee. I ask you to refuse this application.
Thank you very much. And finally we have Jay Pounder, please.
Good evening. My parents live in Carter's Close, adjacent to the application site. Like two of their neighbours in the cul-de-sac, they have occupied their home since the estate was built almost 50 years ago. The large volume of objections to this application are based upon clear conflicts with planning policy and guidance, which we consider to have been given insufficient weight in the officer's report. In addition to the objections raised by previous speakers, the proposed development also does not accord with the character of Carter's Close, which is defined by 2-storey houses set back behind open front gardens with generous spacing. The flat roof has no precedent anywhere in Carter's Close or the village. There is no setback, no front garden. Just a blank flank wall almost at the highway boundary. This council has correctly prevented Carter's Close residents from building into their front gardens, extending flank walls towards the highway boundary and adding flat roofs. This has successfully maintained the open character of the Close for nearly 5 decades. This application is in conflict with policy DE1 of the adopted development plan. In terms of parking and highway impacts, an independent engineer's report demonstrates it will take a minimum of 5 manoeuvres to turn a car in the driveway. MK Highways comments describe the parking as awkward and expect drivers to reverse out of the property. Yet in the year 2000, this council rejected an application by the same applicant for a crossover at the same location to provide access to the existing property. So what has changed? Nothing. If, despite all the material objections raised, the the panel is minded to approve this application, there is a critical need for a condition to require a construction management plan. This is not an unreasonable request, and contrary to the officer's report, the scale of the development is not a valid reason to reject this. It is justified to control the impacts of construction traffic, noise, dust and air quality on the elderly and disabled residents who live adjacent to the site in this tight cul-de-sac location, all of whom would be disproportionately affected. This should include a requirement for all construction access to and from the site to be via Church Road, and all construction vehicles to be parked on Church Road or within the curtilage of Arbour House. The concerns you have heard this evening are not NIMBYism or baseless objections. They are clearly evidenced impacts which in many cases conflict with the development plan and which the local planning authority has a duty to ensure are appropriately mitigated. If that is not possible, the application should be refused. The public benefits of providing one additional house do not outweigh the adverse impacts of this proposal that we have set out in our objections this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much to all of the speakers. The right of reply has been offered to the applicant and their agents, who will have equivalent time, so 9 minutes to respond. If you could make your way to the chamber floor, I believe it's Chris Terrelink. I apologise if that's yeah, 9 minutes. I will notify you when you've got 30 seconds left like the others.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Chris Terrelink. I am a REBA Chartered Architect and I'm a Director of Old Approach, which is a REBA Chartered practice based in Bedford. I'm here to speak for the application for the erection of a detached single-storey, two-bedroom dwelling and associated works on Carter's Close. The design has been developed to respond positively to the constraints and opportunities associated with the site and the surrounding context. This application was submitted following positive pre-application discussions with officers, and we're pleased that officers have continued their support for the proposals, recommending that the permission is granted. While we recognise the concerns expressed by some residents, the application hasn't attracted any objections from statutory consultees. They've all confirmed it complies with national and local policies, and there are no technical objections. Some key points I want to emphasise. So heritage, it's important to remember that Arbour House does benefit from garden land both to the north and to the south. The Conservation Officer visited site and confirms that no harm at all will be caused to the conservation area. The unassuming appearance of the building will help it sit quietly in its context, and it will not compete with Arbour House. We had a comment earlier about the green roof and it being out of character. I don't think you can say that everything has to look the same as what's on Carter's Close now. Certainly the green roof offers additional habitats, it attenuates surface water runoff, and furthermore its low profile actually respects and provides relief to the adjacent listed building. Highways, the proposal will use an existing vehicular access off the cul-de-sac. It uses land either owned by the applicant or within the adopted highway. Therefore, the proposals are deliverable. The tracking that has been submitted by engineers since the application was submitted by us is incorrect. We have submitted tracking that demonstrates that you can. We have provided adequate parking within the site, and you can turn cars within the site boundary, allowing them to enter and exit the site in forward gears. The clear presence of an access at the end of Carter's Close cul-de-sac will discourage others from parking in the hammerhead. After all, a hammerhead is for manoeuvring vehicles, not for parking cars. It's also worth noting that the proposed access into the site will make it easier for existing residents to manoeuvre vehicles off their driveways. The highway authorities confirmed that the proposal for one house will not cause any road safety problems, and they have raised no objection. There is certainly no evidence of any severe impact on the road network that would justify the refusal of this permission. Amenity. The application is for one single-storey house in an established residential area. It is entirely compatible with the surrounding land use. It is a single-storey building. There are only openings at ground floor level. Therefore, there will be no windows looking into adjacent properties, so no overlooking. This is reinforced by the officer's report, which states it is not considered the proposals would introduce any overlooking or any loss of privacy to neighbouring dwellings. The existing close boarding fence going around the site is retained and is 2 metres in height in several areas, and together with the retention of mature landscaping will reinforce the boundary conditions. It's worth noting also that the information that was submitted once the application was being considered by engineers didn't include any sections to demonstrate the impact that our proposals would be having on any neighbours. It has been suggested by objectors that the pitched roof element might possibly be used for additional accommodation. It's not been designed in that way at all. It's a single-storey building. The roof space, the space will allow for vaulted ceilings internally. As our drawing titled illustrative section, which was submitted to the officer, it demonstrates the roof pitch of the structure could not provide any usable floor space at first floor level without increasing the ridge height. This would be controlled by the council for the approval of a future application, and please note the officer has also recommended conditions to remove the relevant PD rights. So, in conclusion, we support the officer's recommendation. There is no reason why this application should not be approved. The proposal provides a high-quality design, proposing a single house within the defined settlement boundary, respecting the pattern of existing development. It complies with the Milton Keynes plan, and there are no objections from statutory consultees. The Parish Council does not identify any conflict with the Sharrington Neighbourhood Plan. Indeed, the neighbourhood plan allows for development within the defined settlement boundary and specifically highlights a need for bungalows in the village. This development will help meet that need. We therefore respectfully request that the panel approves this application. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You may return. Do the officers wish to offer any points of clarification to matters raised by the speakers first off?
Just a couple of points, Chair. There was reference made to the Residential Design Guide, SPD, and the garden size and depth. It's correct to say that there's 10 metre dimension given within that document. But just so members are aware that the dimensions of the new garden would be 13 metres by 6.5, which is, as mentioned in the report, considered to be adequate space. I don't want to reiterate on some of the points that the agents just made, but reference is also made to 4.10.1 of the SPD in terms of privacy, the 22 metre distance, but that must be read in conjunction with 4.10.2, the paragraph following it, which is essentially to say that so there can be innovative solutions. So that might be boundary treatments, other means to block views, essentially obscure glazing, etc. So just to draw that to members' attention. And in terms of the CEMP condition, I will leave that to debate. I think its absence from the report kind of suggests that the officer's opinion is that it's not necessary, given the limited size of the proposal, but that can be left to debate between members. And just to reiterate about the privacy, there are conditions such as condition 9, which does restrict permitted development rights. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those points of clarification. Do the councillors have any other questions of clarification for the officers? And I'd like to remind you, as far as possible, we'll deal with questions of clarification before we go into the debate, as always. Councillor McLean.
Thank you to all the speakers. Very clear with your views, both for and against this application. My question, you partly answered the question, Paul, on the separation distances, but there are other properties that are mentioned, have been mentioned by the objectors that aren't in the officer's report. So just like clarification that you take into account all the properties that were mentioned, even though they aren't in the report. The other thing that's I want to challenge at this point is the car parking and the tracking. It's all well and good to say yes, you can get a car in and out. It very much depends on the size of the car. Some cars have actually got a very small turning circle, and others got a very large one. So is there a particular size of vehicle and with a turning circle that would achieve what the applicant's suggesting? Those are the first two questions.
So insofar as, thank you, Councillor. The first question relating to other neighbours, within the report, it does focus on Arbour House, particularly in terms of distances, predominantly because Arbour House is the closest. But it also goes on to talk about number 39 and also the assessment turns its minds to other neighbouring properties within 7.17 of the report to indicate that officers have considered other neighbouring properties surrounding the site, and predominantly that's where the restriction of permitted development rights comes from. And that is, as you can see, for the benefit of members and members of the public here tonight. So condition 9 is for classes AA, which is upwards extensions, B, which is extensions within the loft space, so for dormer windows. Class C is for new roof lights, but it also the condition also goes on to state that there should be no new windows within walls elevation. So that covers all aspects of upper story development. Essentially, any new development would require planning permission. And in terms of the turning area, the highways engineer, Milton Keynes highways engineer, would have assessed it against its standards, which takes into account a specific vehicular size. I can't tell you what that size is off the top of my head, but it's a standard assessment that is carried out on every planning application on turning circles, etc., or certainly from a residential perspective.
Thank you for those two. The other one that I'd like to ask relates to one of the comments made by an objector about the sunshine that would be reduced with if this development was approved. Could officers comment on what the objector said?
In terms of overshadowing towards neighbouring properties.
Pardon, Paul?
In terms of overshadowing towards neighbouring properties.
Well, there was reference made to a specific property, which I think was Carter's Barns.
Yeah. So the report again does turn its mind to light impacts. It goes into detail about certain things that were raised by members of the public, but it does, as I say, turn its mind to light impacts. It's a single-storey property, and the distances between the proposal and those neighbouring properties fall well within sort of like regulations in the BRE regulations, which in this case would be a 25-degree site plane taken from Carter's Close or any property within the locality. But it also has to do with aspect as well. So, you know, where the shadow will be cast, but predominantly the distance and single-story nature of the proposal. Officers consider that there wouldn't be an adverse impact.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of the committee? Go on.
It was mentioned that a condition might have a construction management plan in place. Can the officers advise us if that is an appropriate proposition?
As I mentioned, its absence from the reports is an indication that officers don't consider it to be necessary in this instance. It's normally largely reserved for larger type developments or in tricky scenarios. However, members can debate the matter. It is not unusual to put a CEMP condition onto approval, so it's a matter of debate and agreement if you members feel that's necessary in this case.
I'm going to ask the heritage question. So, Martin, in the report it mentions that the assessment of harm to the to Arbour House is limited due to the fact that Arbour House is already relatively substantially developed with new additions and things. Can you talk us through what those are, what has changed about it from its original form?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Can you hear me? Right, can you hear me now? Fine. Yes, just I attended the site, and I forget precisely when that was, the grounds of Arbour House, and encountered an attractive, pleasantly, neatly kept garden space that contributes positively to the setting of the house. And I was also made aware of the presence of the swimming pool, which is in the approximate location of the proposed dwelling. And it was pointed out to me that there was a previous extension which not quite doubles, I think, the size of the farmhouse, the Grade 2 listed building. So we're concerned here with issues around the setting of the listed building rather than works directly affecting the fabric of the listed building. So from my site visit I was aware of the swimming pool and the extension and the pleasant garden surroundings that benefit the house at the moment. And then on my return to the office I have a look as part of the exercise trying to judge the harm against benefits and so on, the impact on setting. I looked at historic maps, I did an assessment of that and noted that the ground has actually been extended over previous orchard land, which I couldn't tell from that whether that was pertained to the house or not, or whether farming had stopped at that point. I've subsequently had an older map passed to me by a ward member, I believe was a late item, and it was helpfully referred to by one of the objectors as well, showing outbuildings and confirmation perhaps that this was all one unit in the late 18th century. A bit unsure about what the situation is by the 19th century, but this map shows a farmyard rather than a garden space, and the subsequent mapping in the 1880s shows an orchard which I presume, but don't know, was extended southwards into that orchard at the time of development of Carter's Close. So really I went back to what I encountered on site which is a garden space with a swimming pool where the proposal is relatively low in height. I know there's a debate about the precise height, and that it's sat in a relatively inconspicuous location in that garden. There would be sufficient garden left to set off the house adequately. So I concluded on conservation grounds that there was no harm to setting.
Thank you very much. So can you turn off your microphone? Sorry, thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee for clarification from the officers? Wakas?
Just a question about given no surface water scheme is currently submitted, can officer explain why this meets the NPPF test for condition rather than needing the prior certainty?
So I had a discussion with the Leeds Local Flood Authority about the drainage proposed for the site. They have access to software where they can see existing drainage infrastructure in the surrounding area that might be able to be connected to. They confirmed that there was a surface water drainage sewer located in Church Road, which the site would be able to connect to and which the site is proposing to connect to. Based on that information, it was considered that it is feasible for surface water drainage to be appropriately sort of taken away because that connection is there. The condition is just to ensure that that connection is put in place and is made available prior to sort of occupiers of the dwelling.
Thank you both. Any other questions from the panel before we move on to debate? No, I shall take silence as happy for now. In which case, I now propose the recommendation of debate item 5A, application 2025/2569, which is that permission be granted subject to conditions in the main report. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Marcus. And Rex. Who would like to speak first on the debate tonight? Keith?
I'll start with an amendment. The question's been asked about having a construction environment management plan, something I spotted, and we talked with officers before, Rex raised it. I'd like to put it in a proposal for an amendment to include the provision of a construction environment management plan that will have to be approved by the local planning authority before work commences, and to include the hours of work of Monday to Friday 8 a.m. till 6 p.m, Saturday 8 a.m. till 1 p.m, no work on Sundays or bank holidays.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Thank you, Rex. Does anyone want to speak on that, either for or against? No. In that case, George, can we take a vote on the amendment, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, please could I ask you to raise your hand if you're in favour of the amendment? Unanimous, Chair.
Thank you. Amendment carried. Would anyone like to speak on the now amended motion? Go on, Keith.
I am surprised that no one wants to speak. It was interesting to listen to some of the comments, as I mentioned earlier. We have policies, and if my learned colleague Paul Trendle was here, he would say we have policies and we ought to abide by them. So I'm still of a mind that the separation distancing, whatever Paul said and was in the report, they are there. It is only one property, but I don't think it's in the right place. I was interested to learn about the swimming pool. It was a shame they didn't think about put some basement in and then it could have gone down rather than gone up. It seems to be trying to get a quart into a pint pot, and I am concerned about the the ingress and egress with cars, with the fact there's parking on site as 2, but there's a requirement for another quarter, is strange, but that's going to have a third car, or visitors, like they're going to park out on Carter's Close. It is a public area. You cannot restrict anyone from parking there, but it will increase the number of cars. I think I don't often comment on the design, but I'm afraid the word ugly comes to mind looking at it as the drawings. I've never seen so many people from a single parish come to this planning panel or a planning committee for one dwelling, and the parish council were opposed to it as well. At the moment, I can't find myself going to vote for this on the basis that I think it's in the wrong place, it's the wrong size, and it doesn't meet some of the policies of this council.
Thank you very much, Councillor McLean. Anyone else wish to make any observations, comments? No? Okay, well, my role officially at this point is to sum up the debate. As there has only been one person speaking, that feels like a slightly superfluous role, so I will offer my general thoughts on this as well. There's a reason we don't often comment on design, Keith. Design is far too subjective. I went to university in Newcastle, and every time I walked down the river, there were 2 big buildings across it, the Baltic and the Glasshouse Music Centre, both of which have won design awards, only one of which I can stand. Beauty is very much in the eye of the beholder. Newcastle Brown is the river. No. I do think that there is a lot of things that have been raised tonight and in the comments ahead of the meeting which don't amount to material considerations. However, the proximity to the other houses in terms of the view that Keith has raised, whether there is sufficient sort of amenity land in terms of gardens for both the new house and the shrunken garden for Arbour House, and as much as it doesn't have a dramatic impact on the Arbour House as the listed building, it definitely, from my point of view, does have an impact in that it sits next to it. You can see it from Church Lane or Church Street? Sorry, Church Road. Sorry, you can see it from that road, and it can be viewed from Carter's Close. So there is an impact, perhaps only a less than substantial impact, but it is there. So yeah, it's an interesting one in terms of there aren't, as was mentioned by the agent, any objections from the statutory consultees, but there are clearly quite a lot of minor concerns raised from the neighbours. Unless anyone from the committee wants to chime in now, I will ask George to take a vote, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, please could you raise your hand if you're in favour of the amended motion? And now those against? And any abstentions? Thank you, Chair. So the motion falls.
In that case, the motion to approve falls. I would like to ask one of the people who voted against to propose a motion to refuse and on specific policy grounds. Who wants to take that?
I suggest we take a short break to discuss that with our legal officer, and please. Thank
you. In that case, we will take a 5-minute recess. If those who voted against could gather around this desk so that we can have that conversation. If anyone needs a comfort break, now's a good time to go. So that was a slightly longer pause than we had intended. We will now have the motion proposed to refuse the decision from Councillor McLean.
Thank you. Thank you for waiting, everybody. So we've had a discussion to come up with the reasons that we think that this application should be rejected, which it has been formally, but now the motion will be to that there are issues with the public benefit that will outweigh the harm, the residential amenity view from Carter's Close, the loss of sunlight from properties in including Carter's Barn, and the view of Arbour House from Carter's Close. The way that we would like to proceed is that those will be taken into account, and we will write a formal rejection based on policies HE1 and D5, and that the wording will be delegated to the chair and the vice chairs of the committee and the head of planning. Do I have a seconder?
Thank you, Councillor Smith and Ahmed. Would anyone like to speak on this motion? No. In that case, George, can we take a vote on this motion, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, please can I ask you to raise your hand if you're in favour of the motion? And now those against? And any abstentions? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So that was 4 for and 1 against, so that motion carries. As Keith said, we will formalise the wording of the direction in consultation between chairs, vice chairs and the officers. That is everything for tonight's formal business. I close the meeting at 19:59. Thank you very much for attending. Have a good evening.